Hello, all. Welcome back to Winter Talks, where we talk to some crazy people about some crazy stuff. Because let's be honest, if you aren't crazy, you're not here. Today, we have the Queen of Confusion, Ph0ton. How are you doing?
El Horso.
That's not yours.
I don't care.
Uh, so, before we get into any topics, how about you introduce yourself to us? Tell us who you are, what you do in the content creation space.
Uh, Hi everyone out there. I'm Photon. I mostly create mashups. I've been doing that for just about 5 years now, and yeah, it's a pretty good time. Most people know me for if for anything, it's confusion, which we'll get into shortly. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, yeah. It is great to have you on. This is another one of those episodes where I've wanted to do this one for a little while because of stuff that we will be talking about. Um, so let's talk about, before going into the topic of this interview, like the really big one that people have wanted to know about. What was your introduction into the content creation space? Where did you get your very first start?
All right. So originally, I just started. I listened to mashups on uh, things like SoundCloud and a little bit on YouTube. Uh, Knew of people like Neil Cicerega from friends of mine who
Mm-hmm.
listened to his content and mashups especially. But it wasn't something I particularly thought I was gonna get into. Uh, I mean, I have somewhat of a musical background, but I wasn't really expecting to. The idea for my first mashup, which is "Bodies" by Drowning Pool, over the song from Kahoot. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I made that. I assume it just came to my mind from playing Kahoot in when I was in high school, and I just thought, bodies would sound good over this. So I just ripped the from YouTube. I just ripped the Kahoot theme and found a vocals only stem for Bodies by Drowning Pool and put them together on my phone in GarageBand, and then made a video on iMovie to upload to YouTube. I had to make a new channel for it, and I just went from there. And very shortly after that, I switched to Audacity, which I used for most of my mashuping for a while. But yeah, basically just everything evolved from there.
Okay. I do want to ask. Um, this this there's a little series for those of you out there. There's this little series, um, and it begs the question: why does confusion exist? What the actual hell may have caused you to design something of this magnitude that invades upon all of our nightmares as it does? What poss how could you possibly conceive such a thing?
Let's be honest, your guess is as good as mine. But uh, so originally, before I started to work on Confusion, uh, I had a trio of mashup series called Monstrous Memetacular Mashup, and it was basically
Okay.
just random ideas that I scraped together. The first one is similar to Confusion; they're all really bad, but the other two are just like 10 to 15-second clips of random mashup ideas that I didn't feel like making into a full a full mashup video.
Yeah.
And then from there, I just decided to expand on that idea by starting a new series. I decided to call Confusion and just concoct the most absurd mashups I could think of at the time that have
Mm.
no basis to exist.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. That it genuinely has no reason to exist. um, it is. I will say, however much they are, uh, what's the word? An abomination to music. However much they are that, I find myself enjoying them a bit more now. Every subsequent release, I want to say after 4, has felt a lot easier of a ride, I guess. Because the craft of confusion has definitely changed, I think, as time has gone on.
Yes, it definitely has.
Like, it's. While there are things like, I believe it was Confusion 6 with the very beginning, with My Life is Like a. With that, and with Confusion 7 with. And I mean, it happens in. I want to say it's happened at least once in every Confusion, putting just Avenged Sevenfold in there randomly. Um, I guess I kind of want to ask, what is the theory behind that? What's the motive between actually making it a more listenable experience? Because originally it was just shit piled on because shit was funny. But now there's a method to the madness nowadays with Confusion.
Yes, there definitely has been a change in how I approach these. Uh, because for the first, especially, first 3 or 4, I was just piling on stuff because I thought it would be funny and I thought it sounded okay. But as time has gone on with 5 through 7, uh, I really had to. I really started to focus more on structuring how I'm making them to try to find the perfect balance between something that is just genuinely cursed and sounds a little bit slapped together with the method of actually making something whole and complete. Uh,
Yeah.
that feels like effort was put into it, but just not quite enough.
Yeah.
It's a really fine line you have to toe when making something like that,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I've improved at towing that line. I still fall off of it on occasion, but I feel like as the Confusion series has developed, I've gotten better at finding where that line is between just
Mhm.
cursed as in bad and cursed as in surprisingly not as bad as you think it would be.
Surprisingly moderately okay. Yeah. Um Now, the I think the biggest question I have um with Confusion, besides just, I guess, how it started, which we now have the answer to, hooray, um
Yeah.
is, how do you feel about Confusion having spin-offs with different artists in the mashup creator space now?
That continues to shock me. It doesn't. In a way, I can understand why that happens, why it's come
Mm-hmm.
about, because I feel like it is a somewhat unique experience because it's taking basically what everybody tries to do when they start mashups before they figure out what they're doing. And I mean that as no, there's no insults to anybody making
Yeah.
mashups. It's just a cycle everybody kind of has to go through. But it's sort of taking that and just putting it on a grand scale. And
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it surprises me that there's so many, but I enjoy them all. I'm glad they exist. I'm flattered that people find enough enjoyment out of the Confusion Saga to make spin offs of it. And
And I think the two that are the most recognizable, at least out of what I know, are Confucian and Ignoraven. Those are the two that I'm mostly aware of.
yeah, those are the two that I think a majority of people who would also watch my content would be most familiar with. And
Yeah.
yeah, both of those are great. They're fantastic. It just
Well,
it doesn't
uh,
seem it, in their own way by the standards
yeah.
of confusion. I really like, but yeah, no, I'm flattered that
I
people
love
feel
how,
enough inspiration.
yeah, I love how we have to preface that. In the standards of confusion, they're great.
In the own alternate universe where those were concocted, this is seen as good music.
um, but let's now that we've covered that, now that we have it settled that confusion is its own thing. It is its own separate universe over there. And anyone who wants to go over there, you can, but I personally well, I don't know if I recommend it or not. Honestly, because uh, I mean, it has gotten pretty popular, I would say, the Confusion Saga.
A decent amount,
Because
yeah.
because as you know, you and I want to say like the founding creators of the Mash Pit had a lot of presence. I mean, you guys have. Sorry about that. That was my phone. You guys had a lot of presence from the outreach with content of Alec and Jason. Those two guys, and I think we have to give them props because they've only been brought up in other winter views, as Trixie calls them, winter talks
It's a
episodes
good
with
name.
other mashup creators, and y'all need to. Okay, I chose winter talks because I don't like winter views. I don't know how I feel about it.
Winter Talks is also a good name. I'm not trashing your name.
But I just. I already had the brand name, I already had the logo made, and then Trixie was like, Winter Views, and I'm like, fuck, that's a good name. But I can't
I'm a
change
sucker
it
for a
now.
good pun. Winter Talks is still really good. I'm just a sucker for puns.
Yeah. Like,
But yeah, we
so,
definitely need to shout out all of the people who have reacted to my content, and I would be a nobody. I mean, I still am a nobody, but I would be especially a
no,
nobody
you're not.
if it wasn't for people like Alec and Jason uh,
Yeah,
spreading my content to a larger audience.
absolutely. Yeah, those guys
Like
are awesome. I,
like the
I want
first
to get
Alec
them.
Confusion video has I believe over 1 million views, which I just can't believe.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
I want
I
to say that each subsequent video at least has over like 200,000 on his channel. So,
yeah, definitely they're up there.
and
If not, it's close to it.
but yeah. Um anyway, I think talking about Alec and Jason and all that, we're getting a little bit off track here. So, I wanted to talk just general mashups. The first album that I could find from you was a little collection called Butter My Biscuit.
Yes, that would
And
be
I
my
want
first album.
to and I want to kind of go back in time and talk me through kind of what your experience in the creation scene was back then, because it was definitely a very different time. So let's take a trip back.
Yeah, but yeah, that was that was like 3.5 years ago. So yeah, the creation of mashups was uh, a completely different sphere back then.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing I want to mention before I get into the specifics from that album is uh, just why I decided to make an album in the first place. Uh,
Okay.
because my original channel, I'm sure it just was me probably logging into something where I was where I shouldn't have, and my uh, account information got out, and my original YouTube channel got hacked and then terminated,
Mm.
and which really shifted how I decided to work on mashups when I came back to that after a month or two. I don't remember how long it was. Because my last video on the channel was Confusion Volume 3, and I was planning to be done. I was planning to just set it all aside uh, as far
Yeah.
as Confusion series and had no clue what to do next. And so having that sort of realization and having time to think about what I wanted to do allowed me to sort of come back with a fresh set of eyes and ears about mashups. Uh, and I came back with Confusion Volume 4 because I felt like I had to. But I slowly started to work on an album as a way to compile a bunch of ideas uh, into just a better form factor instead of just randomly uploading uh, a couple videos. That's bigger than anything I had done at the time. So, and it led to Butter My Biscuit, which is a hodgepodge of random mashups. A couple kind of flow theming wise, but overall it's just stuff I decided to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Butter My Biscuit. It's not. I will say, as you know, someone who reviews mashups and all that, it's not the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
it definitely has, I think, a lot of your. I think it has a lot of photonisms. I think it's very much your style. I really found that there was a lot of connective tissue that I could be like, oh yeah, this is faux.
Yeah.
So let's go into, I guess, the process that it took to make it. Like, how long was the production cycle, let's say?
Okay, yeah, the production cycle. Well, when I started coming back to mashups, Confusion Volume 4 was the first video I uploaded. It was in October of 2020. Uh, I probably started in November ish, and the album came out on April 1st of 2021.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would say I got most of it done around like January or February.
Oh, okay.
I my process of mashups for a while was very quick. It
Yeah.
didn't take as much
Yeah,
time
for
as
sure.
I probably should have.
Hey, and that's okay. I mean, at the time you were really doing just mostly confusion stuff. I want to say back then.
Yeah, it was
So
mostly
you
Confusion stuff that I was planning on reaching an audience and a couple other random videos here and there.
yeah. So you didn't exactly know what making a full album was really like. You didn't have that experience at the time, so I don't blame you for not just going over it with a fine tooth comb for upwards of a year, trying to go over it. But I do think that Butter My Biscuit is good. I look back on quite a few of those tracks as I was prepping for this episode, and I really liked it. I actually went back to all of the albums that we're going to be talking about, which leads us into Mashup City.
And that it does. Uh,
So
So yeah, for Mashup City, this came out in January of 2022, so a little while later than uh, Butter My Biscuit did. I put a little more focus on creating. Uh, really, not much actually. Now that I think about it, uh, there wasn't much coming out at the time on the Ph0ton channel. I
Hmm.
wasn't necessarily abandoning it, but I didn't really know what to do. I wanted to make another album eventually, uh, but I kind of took a few months. Just had a lot of other stuff going on. I was I graduated high school in that time period, so I was more focused on other things.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah,
I get that.
there were more things I had to focus on. So really, I didn't start this until probably September, and I just it's just a few songs I put together to basically say I was still doing stuff. And in
Yeah.
2022, once I was comfortable, I started college. I sort of kicked it into high gear because I knew my limits and what I had time to work on and didn't have time to work on. But trying to feel that out took a while. But
Yeah. I was just gonna ask if we could talk about that because I did notice there was a noticeable shift, I guess, in the way that you created mashups from Mashup City on out. So, kind of walk me through that, how that went.
yeah, you definitely can see a change in how I was deciding to create mashups. I think uh, it develops a little farther on later into that year in 2022. You can see more,
Okay.
but I do think, uh, and especially like getting into once we get into anyone out there, I feel like that's where my shift sort of changed. But yeah, I definitely was going for something, a little more grander here, even though this is a really short album. Uh, it's
Yeah.
my, but yeah, my process definitely did change. I was going for something not 100%, just dialing back some of the meme factor while keeping it filled with as many jokes as I felt like I could put in there without it seeming
Yeah.
like only a comedy album. Whereas
Yeah.
Butter My
For
Biscuit
sure.
was just like, yeah, sure, let's put fucking Ozzy Osbourne on it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, overall, honestly, I think Mashup City is probably my weakest uh, project, but there's some cool stuff in here that I still can appreciate.
Yeah. For sure. Um, I think I can share that opinion with you. Um, I do think that Mashup City more than others has flaws. I think it has flaws that the others don't. Whereas this one was much more of a trying to feel out really where you stood with making mashups. Um, as you said, there was an attempt at through line stuff with like actual intent, but because you hadn't had much experience with it, the album didn't exactly fare as well, I would say.
Yeah, I would say that's true. But I do, while we're still on the topic of Mashup City, I do want to mention just how perfect it was that before I knew any of the people uh, involved on the project that was talked about on Trixie's episode of When It Talks, I made Quomohemian Rhapsody,
Yeah,
which just
yeah,
so feels like something I wouldn't have made until like a year later, but it exists on here.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, you know, time went on, time stood still. Um, and then we got a. I want to say this was a pretty different one for you. After Mashup City, you put out Anyone Out There.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at earlier, where I feel like this is where you can tell a shift definitely has happened.
Yeah,
Uh,
this was. I want to say this was a very different album for you.
yeah, it wasn't. I was tackling some stuff that I probably wouldn't have on my first two albums. That much. Uh,
Yeah.
Definitely more
So,
approachable, but there were, a couple slower tracks, things I wasn't really thinking about for my first two albums. Uh, yeah, it
yeah.
still definitely got a lot of photonisms in it, as
Yeah,
you
for sure.
coined.
Um, I really kind of want to ask what that change was. Like, why did you make the change to actually putting, slower stuff that was admittedly more emotional, into it? What was the thought process behind that change?
A big part of that change was just uh, I feel like I always have a desire that I need to be doing more. I need to be doing something grander or more ambitious in some sort of way. And I feel like I just wanted to tackle something I wasn't tackling at that point in time,
Okay.
just to kind of prove to myself that I could do it. And also,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, just trying to find an identity with mashup albums. I know this is my third one, but I still wasn't 100% sure the structure I wanted to have for these kinds of mashup albums and what I what angle I wanted to approach them at. I feel like from the Mash Files on, that's pretty solidified. But I was still
Yeah.
trying to find my foothold in that with this album here.
Absolutely. And I think that is there anything you want to talk about from the Butter My Biscuit to the end of the Anyone Out There era that you really want to kind of touch on in terms of maybe, little things with production, anything like that?
Uh, my production was basically uh, process was basically the same. In between these three albums, I was still using Audacity, which I used for uh, all of my albums up until my most recent one. I got more familiar with the program and more familiar with music production a little bit during this
Mm-hmm.
time, which certainly helped aid in it not sounding quite as amateurish. I still think there's things I would tweak, but uh, before we started this, I flipped through Butter My Biscuit a little bit just to refresh my memory. And listening to it, I was just thinking, man, this needs a lot of work uh, from like a production standpoint.
Yeah, needed a bit more time in the oven there.
Yeah, you definitely could say that. So I think just an improvement overall, just from sort of trial and error, certainly helped
Yeah.
out this album. But
And
yeah, that's about all.
speaking of a big, upgrade or a big change, really finding your footing, the Mash Files.
Yeah, this is. I think this is.
Because
Yeah.
this is really where I started. This is really where I started noticing the Ph0ton isms. This is where I really like when looking back at your old era of content or your new era, I always find a way to connect your sound to the Mash Files. So let's talk about it. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the process that it took because not to mention like these were a bit different than anything that had really come before.
Yeah, certainly. And I feel like this is a bit different is going to become a theme with the and
Yeah.
with these. Uh, but yeah, I feel like this is where I can finally say like, yeah, this is a Ph0ton album. It really, instead of just, oh, this is a collection of songs that of mashups that just happen to be by me. This really feels like it's solidified. Uh, some jokes got laid out here. Some uh, production choices got laid out here. Song selection. Uh, I really feel like I solidified what I wanted to do with a mashup album uh, with this project.
Yeah. Um, so there are actually some individual tracks that I want to talk about.
I was hoping.
Um, One of those being how would you say it? Flames.
Flames. Yes.
That is, I mean, as of not very recently, but it was more recently than not. That song kind of blew up.
Yeah, it most certainly did. It spread
But
around.
unfortunately, it didn't originate from your video.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is something that has been shared and re-uploaded countless number of times. Uh, but yeah, it did not originate with mine. Uh, I think part of that is because the single I attached to the intro because of the transition, but also just in general, memes tend to get reposted without credit. It's just kind of how the cycle works, unfortunately. And I feel like this got that sort of traction, and it got picked up.
Mm.
For some reason, like 2 days ago, YouTube just decided to put in my suggestion feed like all of the re-uploads, so that was fun.
Oh
uh,
wow. Okay.
it just kept putting different ones of it, but yeah, I think the most popular one has like 3.5 million views. It certainly blew
Yeah.
up, which I'm glad people have heard it, and I that one that blew up a bunch, I am credited in the description, so I don't really mind that much. As much as I wish I had a video on my channel with millions of views, it doesn't bother me as that much, honestly, because people got to hear it. I made something that people got to hear, and a
Yeah.
significant portion got to
And
hear, so I'm happy about that.
and it seemed like a lot of your community kind of stepped in and were making sure that everybody knew this was your thing. I was really impressed by the community that you have kind of urging people go listen to the original, go do that instead of listening to the re-upload. I was just really impressed by that.
Yeah, I'm super fortunate that I have, a community of fans that care enough to make sure people know who made it. That I made that mashup. It's just, I'm glad to see that as well. That people
Yeah.
care that much, because I feel like you don't see that that often.
Yeah. Um I think another track that I really want to talk to you about regarding like the process cuz a lot of the tracks that we're going to talk about from here on out are just me kind of asking you what the thought process behind them was. Um I really just have to pick your brain noodle about um I can't remember the title of it, but it was the Billy Joel and Slipknot mashup, the psychosocial one. I can't
Oh
remember
yeah,
what that
Psycho
one.
moving.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. What was the process behind that thing? Because that blew my mind the first time I heard it.
okay, so, well, unsurprisingly, this is very inspired by Night Movin', which is a mashup on Neil Cicerega's Mouth Dreams. That is
Mm-hmm.
moving out with Nightmare by Avenged Sevenfold. And
Yeah.
by that point, I mean, that almost feels catered to, like, that very well fits it to my sort of photonism space, because Billy
Yeah.
Joel was already a joke with Confusion, and Avenged Sevenfold is an artist I grew up listening to all the time and really enjoy. So I got a lot of inspiration from that, but yeah, actually choosing Psychosocial of all songs, uh, obviously I wanted to do something like that, but with another metal song. And I really enjoy Slipknot, and Psychosocial is absolutely, a meme. There's psychosocial memes everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So I thought it would be, and when I listened to it, I uh, listened back to it, I was just thinking, you know what? Maybe this could work. And I put it together, and somehow it worked way better than I thought it would.
Yeah. And you had to do some stuff with pitching around for that chorus to work. Um, may I ask what software exactly you used to get that effect?
Uh, I use Melodyne for all of my pitch shifting uh,
Okay.
stuff, which I'm very fortunate to have. But when I went to college, I got a license for it, and thankfully those are lifetime licenses, so I can just
Gotcha.
have been benefiting from a program that's very powerful,
Yeah.
almost
Very.
too almost too powerful for confusion's sake. It gets terrifying
Yes.
over there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely had to tweak some things. I mean, maybe I could have left it, but I just thought that would really add something else to it, since it's just, an A/B mashup. It's just two samples.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It
I
really
pitched
helped
it to the
you.
original melody.
Yeah. It helped you add your own flavor to it, and I really enjoyed that. And I did want to talk about the ending for each of both of the A sides and the B sides, because they both end kind of emotionally.
Yeah, they
Like
do.
there was again there was a shift in how the endings were portrayed when compared to things like Butter My Biscuit or Mashup City or anything that you had made up to that point, I want to say. So what was the thought process, I guess, behind that?
Yeah, earlier I was like, hey, let's do something that's big and something people will find really enjoyable to close it out with. But I felt, ending on a more emotional note, I feel like that almost aids the comedy stuff towards the middle of the album more, because it
Hmm.
just sort of settles you down at the end of the album and really makes you think, what in the hell did I just listen to for the past 30 minutes to an hour?
Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure. Um, I remember listening to both. I believe it's Johnny Suckle and Reminder Wall. No, Reminder Wall is not yours. That's jazz.
that's jazz.
Um,
Reminder Wall's a great mashup, though.
what was what was the Wonderwall one that you did? Because you did a Wonderwall one, right?
Uh, my mind is
I
blanking
bel
right now.
the very end of B sides, or
The end
was
of B
that?
sides was Johnny Suckle. The end of A sides was Untitled End. It was Simple Plan in Lincoln Park.
Oh yeah, yeah. But yeah, with both of those, it was for lack of a better term, it was a little bit confusing. Um,
Yeah.
and but I will say, I think it was well executed. when I think that I don't know if I want to say that yet. So I think transitioning over to the B sides, there's a few tracks that I want to go over.
Yeah.
Um, I think the number one track that surprised me, and I want to say a lot of people the most, was YY Chip.
I figured that's what you were about to say.
Because that fucking song is wild. How did you even come up with the idea for that thing?
Uh, I, uh, I'm trying to think about how I could even have come up with that. I know for certain I'm super into Rush, so I wanted to do something with YYZ, and I just came up with the idea, like, I want to line something up with it. Just, and somehow, I'm sure I was just listening to Chip the Ripper mashup, but it was like, that's almost the right amount of syllables. Let, let me
Yeah.
put it in there. It's too off. Let me try to line it up. And I spent,
alligator.
yeah, I just had to repeat movie to get it to line up. And I spent ages getting that sort of lined up with it. And by the time I got the first, interior crocodile alligator, I was like, this is just too funny to not make. And I didn't even know if the rest of it would work if I just put, the normal rap over the actual verse section, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But
But
and I had to speed it up by a whole bunch, but it kind of worked.
Yeah. That was I think that was just one of those songs where I was like, is this seriously a thing? And it seems like, at least out of the reactions I've seen, everybody was like that. Did that just happen?
Yeah. It's complete whiplash.
Yeah.
Especially coming off of the mashup before. That's just
How to Save a Secret.
Change. Yeah.
Which I think is a great mashup. It's a very simple mashup, but I think it's very good. I did want to talk about for the B-sides, track 5, Wonder Wish, featuring Bendromeda.
Yeah.
So how did that collaboration come about?
Yeah, because up to this point I hadn't done a collab, and I really haven't done much on my own channel as far as collabs go. But Bendromeda reached out about wanting to do, some collabs, and I was open to it. And I believe you brought up doing something with Wonderwall, and I just and we just started thinking of ideas that would go together. And I don't even remember who came up with what other than that, but it eventually just led to putting like Around the World in 1 week. And actually I believe Bendromeda had sort of like a rough draft of just the original mashup part of it.
Oh, really?
Of Airplanes and Wonderwall. Just like had that idea and was trying to experiment with it and didn't know what to do with it. And we sort of brainstormed ideas together about the rest of the mashup.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that track. I think it is very you. I think it has a lot of, again, the Ph0tonisms. I think that's one of the more emotional Ph0tonisms.
Yeah.
Another track that I wanted to talk about was Centuries Kid, because you single-handedly brought 2014 Fall Out Boy back. You did it. You did
Yeah.
the thing. How do you feel about that?
Uh, I don't know if I should have, but I am. It is. It is certainly. Uh, yeah, it's certainly a mashup to you know to
Yeah,
put together new Fall Out Boy with My Chemical Romance,
yeah,
uh, leading into Spose for some reason. I don't remember how I found that. I mean, I know it's
yeah,
been around for a while, but it wasn't the sort of space I was in to have known it existed.
yeah,
I just stumbled across it and wanted to put it in something, and was looking for a track to put it in, and so I put it in Century's Kid.
yeah. Um, I also wanted to talk about. Now, this is something that I've noticed that a lot of mashup projects have, but your interludes, because in A sides, I believe you had Uptown Interlude,
Yeah,
which was just please never play that track again. God, I'm sorry, but that was just so cursed. It's so cursed. I could not listen to that thing. And then you had Carry On Holding, which is I think is genius. I love Carry On Holding.
it's a
Like it's the complete opposite sides of the spectrum on that one. There's one that I hate with a passion because Uptown Interlude it just go away. But then Carry On Holding is beautiful. I love Carry On Holding.
yeah.
What was the process behind those? Like what was the purpose of having an interlude track? Sorry about the yawning.
Uh, yeah, I do want to mention for Uptown Interlude for me to do an interlude, and that'd be the first one I have done. Of course, it's that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is very cursed. I agree, but yeah, I just thought an interlude was be a good way to throw it towards the middle of the album to just sort of signify a bit of transition because for B-side specifically, I was just thinking there's no way I can follow YY Chip Up with a normal mashup straight away. It just would not work.
Yeah.
That is so, it's on its own island of cursed that nothing I could put immediately after it that's just a simple mashup would justify itself being there. I need something to fill in that space.
Yeah.
With Uptown Interlude, it was more I wanted something to transition into Psycho Moving. But
Yeah.
yeah, on B
And I
sides,
think
yeah,
I think in that right it served its job well. But in any other right it can just go away.
that's fair. That's completely fair. I understand where you're coming from on that one. But yeah, with Carry On Holding, I just was like, hey, the Office theme kind of sounds like hold music already. What can I put over? And I thought of Welcome to the Black Parade. And it's like, oh, well, Carry On. And you're just sitting there on the phone. And I just imagined how irritating that would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. So and again, those two albums ended with pretty serious stuff, which is why the difference between all of that and Joel Lotta Red makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because I think that Joel Lotta Red is the most different album you've ever done. It is a completely different package stylistically from anything else that you have in your discography. Like, absolutely.
Yeah, it's certainly way different than anything else that came before it. On
So,
as far as my discography goes.
Yeah, talk me through the process that Joel Lotta Red had, because I kind of want to know where that tone shift came in, what inspired that?
Uh, so yeah, by the time I got both parts of the mash files done, I was just thinking, man, I'm really just cranking out these shorter projects, uh, and I like what's going on with them, but I want to do something that has a little bit more to it. It's not just, oh, here's 8 or 9 tracks of cursed whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the cases where I started developing an album right away. Like the B sides came out, I gave myself like a couple weeks, but then I was brainstorming what do I want to do for my next album. I want it to be something different, and the actual Joel Outta Red part of it only came into existence about halfway through. I had like 7 mashups or so that I wanted to have on a new album, and I had to figure out how to sort of weave these together under the guise of something. And
And then you realized they were all Billy Joel.
and then I realized Billy Joel, uh, yeah, and built everything else from there. And
I'm really surprised that copyright still hasn't struck down that album, because with being, with it being Billy Joel, you'd expect copyright to have a problem, but nope, they're kind of letting this one off, which is great news for us. But
yeah, honestly, just with everything I have on it, I'm surprised. There's just so much on it that totally could get claimed and isn't.
yeah, um, I really loved my experience with Joel Outta Red.
It's a
I
roller coaster.
think, yeah. Um, and I have a controversial opinion regarding that album. I love things like Rose Tinted Glasses. I love Mandela 3. Hell, I love Yours Truly Nevermore. But I think objectively, just speaking from a purely objective standpoint, I think the best mashup album of last year was Joel Outta Red. Because that album is so, it's so good throughout. I don't think there's a single weak track on there. I think they all have a place where they fit. I think none of the tracks overstay their welcome or are too short. I think everything just fit right with that album. And I really got to give you props, because that album is one of the most enjoyable mashup listening experiences I've ever had.
I'm very flattered about that. Uh, but I do want to
Sorry,
mention, yeah,
sorry for not warning you about that, by the way.
it's fine. But I do want to mention, because you mentioned everything went on for the perfect amount of time. I mean, if you look at the track list times, there's so many that are like around a minute and a half, and I feel like I did a good job of understanding which ones needed to stay to build up uh, what they were trying to do, and which ones worked really well as smaller jokes that and not having something overstay its welcome, not having something that's 4 minutes that doesn't need to be 4 minutes. You get the joke in a minute and a half. I think it
Yeah,
does a good job at
absolutely.
that. I still
I,
think I pulled that off pretty well. If I was gonna pat myself on the back for anything in here.
yeah, absolutely. I think that album is fantastic. Um, it's one of the crowning achievements I've seen from the mashup sphere, like this side of the community, because it's so good all the way through, and it very clearly it got me emotional in my reaction to it. I kind of I kind of went sad winter hours and started shedding a tear or so, because it's just so good. And to any of you out there who haven't listened, I mean, just in general to Ph0ton stuff, go listen. But that album in particular, I think, is a great place for anybody to start because it's just exceptional. It is beautiful. It's such a good record. So, go listen, all y'all. Um, what is, I mean, because I the unofficial poll was led with the best albums of last year. How do you feel about that album being a lot more up there in terms of people's like placements in the community?
Uh, it certainly comes as a bit of a shock given how the other albums that were received that highly were sort of shifting. Shifting away from the typical mashup album format and going for something, a little more unique. Uh, Definitely leaning more emotional and personal. Uh,
Yeah,
so I feel like I'm surprised for me to just come back with just kind of a grander version of what the Mash Files was doing, just on a, you know, different scale, of course, but it does seem
yeah,
strange that it's held to such a high regard in that way. But I really appreciate that it's that people still found enjoyment in that kind of thing. As I was starting to feel as if that style was being a little bit left behind, not fully, of course. There's always room for this kind of thing, it seems. But yeah, I was surprised that it was received that well.
yeah. And I think that really brings us to so far the longest to date, the one that has the best mix of both the emotion and the memes in your discography with Virtual Madness. I again, I've admitted it before on the interview with Trixie. I have listened to Virtual Madness without reacting to it, and I'm so sorry that I did not record that experience because that album is amazing. Still my favorite of this year, I think. Mashup album wise. I think that album is my favorite for this year.
Uh, well, yeah, thank you. I'm really proud of what I did with it. Uh, I definitely took another step forward in terms of production value and things of that nature. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
for example, this was entirely made in Ableton Live, a program I
Yeah.
touched once or twice, but didn't own. I bought it like a week after Joe Lotta Red released.
Oh
I was
wow.
like, I'm done working in Audacity. I need something that I can use its full potential. I've used every aspect of Audacity I could manage. I squeezed it dry. I need to find something new to be able to make my mashups with.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and it definitely paid off, I think, because Virtual Madness is a masterpiece. Again, it's another one of those that I go back to pretty frequently. Um, I can't remember the track, the name of it. I remember how it goes because it's the one with the Maroon 5 key change.
oh,
And
are you not?
I,
Yeah.
I just kind of want to ask key changes and mashups. There have been a couple mashup albums recently that have had them. What was the reason behind that? I'm really curious.
Uh, yeah, this is one of the cases I've had mashups with key changes before, but they were baked into the original song. This is a case where I added a key change that did not
Yeah.
previously exist. Uh, and I decided to do that, one, because it would have fit a little bit in the original song anyway, and two, because I felt it just needed something, because it was Arctic Monkeys and Maroon 5. and it had gone on for a little too long at that point. It needed something to breathe life into it. So, and I mean, of course, I did add, Wonderwall with the second chorus, but by the
Yeah.
time the bridge was over, it needed to build to something else, or else I felt like it was going to overstay its welcome. So I decided to put a key change in,
Yeah.
just to give it some new life.
And I've explained on my channel before, my favorite thing in all of music is key changes. So when I heard that, I literally just I punched myself in the leg and I was like, "Damn it, I should have reacted to this. I should have." Because I feel like that reaction would have been great for you to see. I would have loved for you to have seen it. But I was in the stream when Alec was doing his playthrough of that album, and I remember all the chat's reaction, and it was very fun, very good experience.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
no, no, go ahead.
No, I don't really have anything else to
Oh,
say. I was just gonna, but yeah, I do. I have gone back to that reaction a couple times, specifically to look at the chat's reaction to some of these, and it
mm-hmm.
is it is a treat, and it's useful to know what people find the most like impactful moments of stuff like this.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, before we go on to um, the next portion on the list, I forgot to put this on the list, but collaborations. Since the Mash Files, you've actually kind of you've opened the floodgates for more and more mashup collaborations in terms of just getting random stuff out there or getting heartfelt stuff out there. Ridiculous stuff that I can think of is uh oh my god, I can't remember the name of the mashup now, but it's the one on Butt.
Yeah.
Trixie's album. The one that went completely off the rails, and turned from sicko mode to Mambo number 5.
Yeah, it's Cinco
Um,
mode to Cinco
yeah,
mode, spelled two different ways.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, that one was crazy. That was quite the call. That night when we decided to make that together.
yeah. And um, I know that it has been recently announced, and it is releasing very soon. Actually, you have announced the with uh, the bird brained bestie of mine. What is the, like, out of what you can say before it releases?
I mean, well, for one, I would assume this is probably going to come out after because it releases on the 7th, which is just about a week from now.
Yeah,
But yeah,
this is going out
the
in
is
December or January.
yeah, the is a project that Trixie and I both have love for Kendrick Lamar's discography, and
Mm.
we decided to show that through the making of the, which that just came from us throwing random stuff together on the album art for Damn by Kendrick Lamar, and we came up with the, and so yeah,
Is
that's
there is there any hidden meaning behind the? Is it an acronym, or is it just the?
it's just the for the sake of the.
Okay, gotcha. Um, are there any collaborations that are coming soon that you can talk about that isn't the, or are they still in development, or like any that you can't talk about?
Uh,
I mean,
right
you
now
you
at the
can't
moment,
talk about them.
no, right now at the moment, there I do not have any specific collaboration plans. I'm just trying to finish up everything I've got planned for the end of the year, up until the end of the year, because I do have stuff planned out for that. I don't have any new collabs coming, uh,
Okay.
but I'm open to them, so we'll see.
Yeah. Um, I guess we've kind of run through a lot of our topics here in a very short amount of time compared to Winter Talks episodes like Trixie's or like Tyler's or Mia's. So I guess that leaves us with the question, what is next for Ph0ton? What is in the very near future, the distant future? As you said, we've got The coming up in a few days, in a week from the date of recording this. But is there anything that you yourself are kind of aspiring towards from here on out?
Uh, from here on out, I'm really trying to figure out what to do. I like I mentioned earlier, I have everything planned out for up until the end of the year. I have a project called Songs from the Compendium that should be coming out later this year. That is a sort of compilation of mashups from the soundtracks of the Persona games, uh,
Okay.
and that will be coming out pretty soon. More information will be revealed on that shortly. Uh, but overall, I'm just trying from 2025 on. I'm really just trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing from then on. I've been brainstorming ideas, uh, so there's nothing I can really say right now, unfortunately. But I do expect more stuff to be coming. I don't intend on stopping yet, at least.
Okay.
So,
Is there
ex-
is there any update on what the potential LP number 8 might be, or will we have to wait and see with that one?
that is something you will have to wait and see.
Ah, okay. Well, alrighty then. So this was a very brief talk, but I enjoyed it. Um, very glad to have you on. It was great talking to you. I think you and I need to talk more often because you're really cool. So
Thank you. I think we need to talk more often as well, because I always enjoy when we get the opportunity to.
yeah. So to all of those out there listening, if you are still there, thank you for having more than the attention span of a goldfish. It is very helpful in the YouTube system and all that. If you've liked what you've heard here, leave likes, leave comments about our discussions. I'll leave all of Ph0ton's links in the socials, or all of Ph0ton's socials in the description. So, I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to say literally anything you want into the mic. Just don't be problematic. Go.
Uh, I'm currently saying things that are unproblematic.
Like
I
any promos, any.
hey, check out my YouTube, Ph0ton. I also upload my albums on Bandcamp. You can find them there. Uh, that's about it. Just be on the lookout for new stuff, because there's new stuff coming, and I hope y'all enjoy it.
Alrighty, that's going to be about it from us. Peace, everybody. In due time.